Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to English in Advance. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm so happy you've decided to join me today. Let's begin our journey together with a few thoughts to consider. How do you feel when you have to start a conversation in English? Do you sometimes find yourself searching for the right words or wondering what to talk about, especially with someone you've just met? And what about those moments of silence when you're not sure how to keep the conversation moving forward? If any of this sounds familiar, please know you are not alone. And today's episode is created just for you. We are going to dive deep into the world of conversational English, a skill that is absolutely essential for building your confidence and fluency in everyday life. Whether you're catching up with a dear friend, meeting a new colleague for the first time, or navigating a professional discussion, knowing how to guide and sustain a conversation is truly a key to connection. Let's start at the very beginning, how to open a conversation. The first few words can set the entire tone. When you meet someone for the first time, a simple and friendly greeting can make all the difference. You might use something classic like, "Hi, I'm Jessica, it's nice to meet you." Or perhaps something a little more casual like, "Hello, how's it going?" These simple phrases are like an open door, inviting the other person into a friendly space. Let's imagine you are at a workshop. You see someone standing alone, looking at the event program. You could walk over with a gentle smile and say, "Hi there. There's a lot of interesting sessions today, isn't there?" This is a wonderful way to start because you are commenting on a shared situation, the workshop you are both attending. It's a low-pressure way to begin. Once you've broken the ice with a greeting, you'll want to learn a little more about the person. This is where small talk comes in, and it's a very important skill. You can ask simple questions that show your interest. For example, "So, where are you from?" is a classic question that helps you understand a bit about their background. Another great one, especially in a professional or academic setting, is, "What do you do for work or study?" Let's paint a picture. Imagine you've started talking to that person at the workshop. Let's call him Leo. You've introduced yourselves. Now you can ask, "So Leo, what brings you to this workshop today?" This question is fantastic because it's directly related to your shared context, and it invites him to talk about his interests or professional goals. These kinds of questions are the building blocks of a conversation. They show that you are curious and want to get to know the other person better. Now, once a conversation has started, the next challenge is to keep it flowing smoothly. One of the most powerful tools you have for this is the art of asking follow-up questions. This shows that you are not just hearing the words, you are actively listening. Let's go back to our new friend, Leo. Suppose he answers your question by saying, "I'm a graphic designer and I'm here to learn more about new design software." Instead of just saying, "Oh, that's nice," you can dig a little deeper. You could ask, "Oh, that's really interesting. How long have you been a graphic designer?" Or, "What kind of projects do you enjoy working on the most?" Can you see how these questions open up the conversation? You are giving him a chance to share more about his passion and his work. Let's say he mentions he's from Spain. Instead of just nodding, you could reply with genuine enthusiasm. "Wow, Spain, I've always wanted to visit. What's your favorite thing about your hometown?" This kind of engaged response makes the other person feel heard, valued, and it encourages them to share more, making the conversation a rich, two-way exchange. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where you just freeze? You don't know what to say next, and an awkward silence starts to creep in. Please don't worry. It happens to absolutely everyone, even native speakers. A wonderful tip to overcome this is to share your own experiences or opinions related to the topic. It makes the conversation more personal and engaging. Let's imagine Leo, the graphic designer, mentions that he loves to travel in his free time. You could share a piece of yourself by saying, "I love traveling too. My most memorable trip was a few years ago when I went hiking in the mountains. The views were just breathtaking. Have you ever been on a hiking trip?" By sharing your own little story, you're not just asking a question, you're contributing to the conversation and building a connection. It makes the interaction feel less like an interview and more like a real, balanced chat between two people who are getting to know each other. Another incredibly important part of conversational English is learning how to react naturally to what the other person is saying. Your reactions show empathy and help to build a stronger connection. Think of your reactions as the emotional soundtrack to the conversation. When someone shares some exciting news, for example, if a friend named Chloe tells you, "I finally got that promotion I was working so hard for," you can respond with genuine excitement in your voice. You could say, "Wow, Chloe, that's amazing. Congratulations. I knew you could do it." Or, "That sounds fantastic. We should celebrate." These positive reactions validate their feelings and make them feel good. On the other hand, if someone shares a problem or some difficult news, let's say a friend named Mark tells you, "I'm really worried about my dog. He hasn't been feeling well." Your reaction should show concern and support. You could say, "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that, Mark." Or, "That must be so tough for you. Is there anything I can do to help?" See now. These empathetic responses show that you care and that you're there for them. They are crucial for building trust and deepening your friendships. Just as important as starting a conversation is knowing how to end it politely. This can sometimes feel a little awkward, but with the right phrases, you can leave a wonderful, positive impression. You don't want to just stop talking and walk away. You need a smooth transition. You might say something like, "Well, it was so great talking to you, Leo." Or, "I've really enjoyed our chat, but I should probably get going now." These phrases signal that the conversation is coming to a close in a friendly way. You can also add a forward-looking statement to show that you'd like to interact again in the future. For instance, "Let's catch up again soon." Or, "I hope we can continue this conversation another time." These expressions leave the door open for future interaction and show that you truly valued the time you spent talking with them. It makes the other person feel appreciated and respected. Learning conversational English isn't just about memorizing the right words and phrases. It's also about understanding the unspoken parts of communication, like your tone of voice and your body language. For example, a warm smile and making gentle eye contact can make you seem much more approachable and friendly. It tells people you are open and happy to talk. Your tone of voice can completely change the meaning of your words. Think about the phrase, "That's nice." If you say it with enthusiasm and a high pitch, "That's nice." It sounds positive and sincere. But if you say the exact same words in a flat, monotone voice, "That's nice," It can sound uninterested or even sarcastic. Pay attention to how your voice rises and falls. This is called intonation, and it adds so much emotion and meaning to your speech. Have you ever considered practicing conversations with a friend or a language partner? This can be an incredibly helpful and fun way to build your confidence. You can try role-playing common situations. For instance, you and your friend could pretend one of you is a customer at a restaurant and the other is a waiter. You can practice ordering food, asking questions about the menu, and paying the bill. Or you could practice asking for directions in a new city. The more you practice these real-life scenarios in a safe and supportive environment, the more natural and automatic your responses will become. And please, always remember that it is perfectly okay to make mistakes. No one, absolutely no one, expects you to be perfect, especially when you are learning a new language. The most important thing is to keep trying, to keep practicing, and to focus on communicating your ideas and connecting with people. Over time, you will find that conversations become easier, more enjoyable, and something you actually look forward to. Now, let's talk about expanding your vocabulary specifically for conversational English. Learning individual words is great, but learning entire phrases can make your conversations much smoother and more interactive. Think about phrases that act as social glue. They help the conversation stick together. For example, if someone asks you a question that makes you think, you could say, "That's a good question." This gives you a moment to gather your thoughts. When you understand someone's point, you can show it by saying, "I see what you mean." And if you don't understand something, it's always okay to ask for help with a phrase like, "Could you explain that a bit more?" Or, "I'm not sure I follow." These phrases are your best friends in a conversation. They show that you are engaged, thoughtful, and truly interested in what the other person is saying. How do you feel when a conversation switches from one topic to another? For example, you might start by talking about your favorite hobbies, and then somehow end up discussing travel, or food, or your plans for the future. Being able to move smoothly from one topic to the next is another great skill to develop. These transitions help to keep the conversation dynamic and engaging. You could use a phrase like, "Speaking of hobbies, that reminds me of my trip to Japan." This connects the old topic to the new one. Or you could say, "That's interesting. It makes me think of something I read recently." These little bridges between topics prevent the conversation from feeling stuck or repetitive. By practicing all of these skills, starting conversations, asking follow-up questions, sharing your own stories, reacting naturally, and transitioning smoothly, you will become a much more confident and effective communicator in English. Remember, it's not just about the words you say. It's about listening, responding, and truly connecting with the person you're speaking to. Let's dive even deeper into how we can improve our conversational English. A major part of having smooth, enjoyable conversations is learning how to stay relaxed. Sometimes when we're speaking in a second language, it's so easy to get nervous or to worry constantly about making a mistake. But I want you to remember this. Every single conversation is a chance to learn and to improve. So when you're practicing, try to take a deep breath, stay calm, and focus on expressing your ideas as clearly as you can. It's completely fine if you need to pause for a moment to think of a word. A good way to help yourself stay relaxed is by listening very carefully to what the other person is saying. We call this active listening, and it is an essential skill in any language. This means you're not just hearing the sounds, you're trying to understand the real meaning behind their words. For example, if a colleague named Sarah says, "I've been so busy with work lately, I feel overwhelmed." Instead of just nodding your head, you might respond with something that shows you truly heard her. You could say, "That sounds really tough, Sarah. How do you manage to find any time for yourself with such a heavy workload?" This response shows that you're paying close attention, and it makes the other person feel understood and heard. When it comes to keeping a conversation going, it's also incredibly helpful to give a little bit of feedback on what the person has said. This doesn't mean you need to repeat everything they just told you, but adding something related to what they shared can work wonders. For instance, if someone mentions that they recently went hiking, you could say, "Hiking sounds like so much fun. I went for a hike last summer in the forest, and it was just amazing to be surrounded by all that nature. Where did you go for your hike?" This simple technique accomplishes two things. It keeps the conversation moving forward, and it allows you to share one of your own experiences, making the conversation more interactive and balanced. Another thing to keep in mind is the immense importance of asking open-ended questions. These are questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. They invite the other person to share more details, thoughts, and feelings. Instead of asking a closed-ended question like, "Do you like sports?" which will likely get a one-word answer. Try asking an open-ended question like, "What kind of sports do you enjoy watching or playing, and what do you like about them?" Siu. Can you see the difference? The second question encourages a much more detailed and interesting response. You get to learn more about the person's interests and personality, and you give the conversation a chance to grow and evolve. Open-ended questions are the key to making conversations richer, deeper, and far more enjoyable for everyone involved. Sometimes in conversations, you'll need to share your opinions. And this is another wonderful area where you can practice your English. Giving your opinion is a great way to keep a conversation lively, but it's important to do it in a polite and respectful way. You can use phrases that soften your statement a little. You might say something like, "I think that's a great idea, but personally, I prefer something a little different." Or, "In my opinion, it might be better to." These phrases allow you to share your own unique views without sounding too direct, too strong, or confrontational. They help to create a more balanced, friendly, and collaborative atmosphere in the conversation. Another fascinating aspect of conversational English is understanding the natural flow of a discussion. Conversations are rarely linear. They can go in many different directions, and that's perfectly fine and normal. One moment you might be talking about a new movie you saw, and the next you're discussing your favorite childhood foods or your family. The ability to transition smoothly between these different topics is a valuable skill. You could use phrases like, "That reminds me of something else I wanted to ask you about." Or, "Speaking of that, I've been wondering." These transitions help to keep the conversation feeling alive and spontaneous, and they prevent those dreaded awkward silences from setting in. At times, you might not understand every single word that's being said, And I want to assure you that this is completely okay. Please don't be afraid to ask for clarification. It's a sign of a good listener, not a weak speaker. You can politely say, "I'm sorry, could you please repeat that?" Or, "I didn't quite catch that last part. Could you explain it again?" Asking for clarification is a great way to show that you are engaged and that you truly want to understand. Most people will be very happy to explain because it shows you care about what they are saying and you value the conversation. It's also very important, especially for learners, to try and keep your sentences clear and not too complicated. Instead of trying to use long, complex sentences with lots of clauses, focus on expressing your thoughts in a simple, direct way. For example, instead of saying a very long sentence like, "I would be most appreciative if you would be so kind as to share with me some more detailed information regarding your recent vacation to Italy, as I am quite interested in that particular region and would love to visit it myself one day," you can say the same thing much more naturally. You could say, "I'd love to hear more about your trip to Italy. What was your favorite part?" This way, you keep the conversation easy to follow, natural and comfortable for both you and the other person. Small talk is a key ingredient of conversational English. It's the light, casual conversation that doesn't dive into very deep or serious topics, but it's absolutely perfect for meeting new people or for warming up before a more significant discussion. For instance, when you meet someone new, asking about their day or their plans for the weekend is a wonderful way to start. You could ask, "What did you do over the weekend?" Or, "How's your day going so far?" These simple questions help to break the ice and allow the other person to talk about themselves, which is something most people enjoy doing. Building confidence in your speaking skills also means learning to accept that you will make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is a fundamental part of the learning process. It's something we all experience, and it's how we grow. If you don't know a specific word or phrase, please don't be afraid to ask for help or to use simpler language. For example, if you forget a word, you could say, "I don't know the exact word for it, but it's like a," and then describe what you mean. Most people will appreciate your effort and will be very patient and helpful with you. One of the best tips I can give you is to try and practice having conversations every single day. You can practice with a friend, find a language partner online, or even just talk to yourself. Try narrating your actions as you cook dinner, or talk to your reflection in the mirror about your day. You can also use language exchange apps where you can connect with native speakers who want to learn your language. The more you practice speaking, the more confident and fluent you will become. And please remember, conversations don't have to be perfect. The more relaxed and natural you are, the easier it will be to keep the conversation going. When you're just starting, focus on the basics: simple greetings, introductions, and easy questions. As you become more comfortable, you can start to expand your vocabulary and talk about more complex topics, like your hobbies, your dreams for the future, and your opinions on different subjects. Over time, you'll be able to express yourself with much more ease and confidence. Now let's think for a moment about how to be a good listener, as well as a good speaker. In any conversation, it is just as important to listen carefully as it is to speak clearly. When the other person is talking, make sure you are giving them your full attention and not just thinking about what you're going to say next. You can show you're listening by nodding your head, maintaining gentle eye contact, and giving small verbal cues like, I see, uh-huh, or that's interesting. These small signals show that you are actively listening. This skill is absolutely crucial for building strong connections with other people and for making your conversations more meaningful and rewarding. Let's dive even deeper into refining our conversational English skills. At its very core, having a good conversation is all about connection. It's about the beautiful exchange of ideas, the sharing of experiences, and the joy of learning from one another. To achieve this wonderful connection, we need to develop both confidence and competence in how we use the language. Let's explore some more advanced strategies to elevate your conversational abilities, whether you're just starting out on your English journey or you're looking to polish the skills you already have. A crucial element in building conversational fluency is expanding your vocabulary. The broader your vocabulary, the easier it will be to express your unique thoughts and feelings. But here's a special tip. Focus on learning words and phrases that are practical and relevant to your own daily life. For example, if you often talk about your hobbies, then it makes sense to learn vocabulary related to your favorite activities. Instead of memorizing long, random lists of words, try to learn entire phrases that you can use immediately in a real conversation. For instance, instead of just learning the single word travel, learn useful phrases like, I'd love to travel too, or what's the best place you've ever traveled to? This way, your learning becomes purposeful and directly applicable to your life. Another highly effective method is to learn common idioms and expressions. These are the colorful phrases that native speakers use all the time, and understanding them can make your conversation sound much more natural and authentic. For example, instead of saying, I'm very tired, you could try saying, I'm worn out. Or, instead of saying, I agree with you, you might say we're on the same page. These small changes can make your speech sound more fluent, more engaging, and more like a native speaker. Pronunciation is another key area we should focus on. When we communicate, it's not just about what we say, but how we say it. Practicing clear pronunciation will make your conversation smoother and much more effective for your listener. To improve, try listening closely to how native speakers pronounce words. Notice their rhythm, their intonation, and how they stress certain syllables in a word or a sentence. Then try to mimic them. You can use online tools or apps to listen to native speakers and then repeat what they say. Even watching movies or TV shows in English and pausing to repeat some of the lines can be a fun and incredibly effective way to practice your pronunciation. Now, let's talk more about maintaining a conversation. One powerful way to keep the dialogue flowing is by using those wonderful follow-up questions. Let's imagine someone tells you, I just got back from a trip to Spain. Instead of responding with a simple, that's nice, you could ask with genuine curiosity, wow, Spain, that sounds incredible. What was your favorite part of the trip? Or, which cities did you get to visit? These follow-up questions show that you are truly interested, and they give the other person a wonderful opportunity to share more. It also takes the pressure off you, because for a little while they'll be doing more of the talking. Another way to keep a conversation alive and balanced is by sharing a little bit about yourself. For example, if someone mentions that they enjoy playing soccer, you might respond with, "I've always wanted to try soccer. I usually play basketball, but soccer looks so exciting. How often do you get to play?" By sharing something about yourself, you make the conversation more interactive and create a lovely sense of mutual exchange. Now let's address a very common challenge. What do you do when you're just not sure what to say? This can happen to anyone at any time, especially when speaking a second language. The key is to stay calm and use a few simple strategies to buy yourself a little time to think. You could say something like, "That's a very interesting point. Let me think about that for a moment." Or you can rephrase what the other person said, which gives you a moment to collect your thoughts. For example, if someone says, "I find history fascinating," you could respond with, "So you're saying history is a really rich subject. What period of history do you enjoy studying the most?" To truly excel in conversational English, you need to practice regularly. But here's another tip. Don't just practice in a structured way, like in a classroom. Try to engage in real-life conversations whenever you have the chance. Whether it's chatting with a colleague during a coffee break, joining a group discussion online, or even just talking to yourself while you're cooking dinner, every single bit of practice helps you improve. If you don't have someone to practice with in person, consider joining online language exchange groups. These communities are filled with people from all over the world who are also looking to improve their language skills, and they offer a very supportive and encouraging environment for practice. Let's also talk about body language. Did you know that a huge part of communication isn't about words at all? Nonverbal cues, like your gestures, your facial expressions, and your posture, play a massive role in how your message is received. For example, maintaining good, gentle eye contact shows that you're engaged and listening. A simple smile can make you appear much more friendly and approachable. Even the way you nod your head can indicate that you're listening and agreeing with what's being said. When it comes to your tone of voice, think about how it conveys your emotions. A monotone voice can make you sound uninterested, while a varied tone shows enthusiasm and passion. Practice speaking with energy and emotion, especially when you're talking about topics you're passionate about. This makes your conversation more lively, more interesting, and more enjoyable for both you and the person you're speaking with. Mistakes are absolutely inevitable when you're learning a new language, and that is more than okay. Instead of feeling embarrassed or discouraged, try to view them as precious opportunities to learn and grow. For instance, if someone gently corrects your grammar, don't feel bad. Thank them for helping you to improve. Remember, the goal is progress, not perfection. Every single mistake you make brings you one step closer to fluency. Lastly, let's consider the cultural aspect of conversational English. Language isn't just about words. It's also about understanding the culture behind them. For example, in some cultures, it's common to be very direct, while in others, people tend to be more indirect to avoid causing any offense. Learning about these cultural nuances can help you navigate conversations much more effectively. For instance, understanding that Americans often say, "How's it going?" as a casual greeting, even when they don't expect a long, detailed response, can save you from confusion. In summary, improving your conversational English is a beautiful journey that involves building your vocabulary, practicing your pronunciation, mastering small talk, and understanding cultural nuances. With consistent effort and a positive, patient attitude, you'll soon find yourself becoming more confident and fluent in no time at all. Let's take an even deeper dive into some more advanced techniques for truly mastering conversational English. We've covered the basics, but to reach a higher level of fluency, you'll need to step up your game. One highly effective way to do this is by practicing active listening. Active listening means truly focusing on what the other person is saying, without planning your own response while they're still talking. It's about understanding the speaker's words, their emotions, and their intentions. This is a skill that goes far beyond just hearing words. It involves thinking critically and responding thoughtfully. When you listen actively, you're able to ask better questions, provide more insightful answers, and connect with the speaker on a much deeper level. Active listening is essential for any great conversation, as it shows respect and genuine interest in the other person's point of view. To practice active listening, try repeating back what the speaker has said, but in your own words. This is called paraphrasing, and it helps to confirm your understanding. For example, if someone says, "I've been feeling really tired lately because of my new job," you could respond with, "It sounds like your new job is really demanding. I can see why you'd feel tired." This shows that you've been paying attention and makes the conversation more engaging. Another way to improve your conversational skills is by focusing on your fluency. Fluency refers to your ability to speak smoothly and without too much hesitation, even when you don't know the exact word for something. To practice fluency, try speaking about a topic for a set period of time, like 2 minutes or 5 minutes without stopping. You can start by choosing simple topics, such as, "What did you do this weekend?" or "What's your favorite food?" This exercise helps you to think on your feet, and it's okay if you make mistakes along the way. Fluency is about communication, not perfection. The more you practice this, the more comfortable you'll become with expressing yourself quickly and clearly. One of the biggest hurdles for many English learners is dealing with nerves or anxiety when speaking. It's completely normal to feel a little anxious when speaking a second language, but please don't let that hold you back. One way to build your confidence is by practicing in a safe and supportive environment. You can start by speaking with close friends or family members who won't judge you. As you get more comfortable, try to engage in conversations with strangers or even join online language exchange platforms. Remember, making mistakes is a natural part of the learning process. Every single time you speak, you are getting better, and with each conversation, your confidence will grow. It's also very important to learn how to manage conversations effectively. For example, if you feel like the conversation is running out of steam, you can introduce a new topic or ask a relevant follow-up question. Here's an example. If you're talking about movies and the conversation starts to slow down, you could ask, "What's the last movie you saw in a theater?" Or, "Do you have a favorite actor or actress?" These questions help you to keep the conversation flowing, and they also show that you're genuinely interested in learning more about the other person's experiences. Another critical aspect of improving your conversational English is developing your ability to use transitions effectively. Transitions are words or phrases that help to connect your ideas smoothly, making your conversations more coherent and easier for others to follow. For example, when you want to add more information, you can use phrases like, in addition, furthermore, or not only that. When you're presenting contrasting ideas, you might say, however, on the other hand, or that being said. Transitions act like bridges between your sentences, helping to guide your listener through your thoughts seamlessly. Practicing these phrases in context can make your speech sound much more polished and professional. Additionally, understanding and practicing idiomatic expressions can greatly enhance your ability to engage in natural conversations. Idioms are phrases where the meaning isn't immediately clear from the individual words, such as break the ice, which means to start a conversation in a relaxed way, or hit the nail on the head, which means to describe something perfectly. Using idioms correctly can make your English sound more fluent and native-like. Start by learning a few common idioms and practicing them in sentences. For instance, if someone asks how your weekend was, you might say, "It was a blast. I got to spend time with my friends." This not only shows your understanding of casual expressions, but also makes the conversation more lively and relatable. Learning how to respond appropriately to different tones and situations is another essential skill. Conversations can be formal, like in a business meeting, or informal, like when you're chatting with friends. Being able to adapt your language and tone accordingly is crucial. For formal situations, use polite language and avoid slang. For example, instead of saying, "What's up?" and "Ni si utit," you might say, "How are you doing today?" On the other hand, in informal settings, it's perfectly fine to use more casual language. By practicing in both formal and informal contexts, you can develop the flexibility to navigate any conversational situation with ease and confidence. Building a strong vocabulary is equally important. To express yourself clearly and precisely, you need to have a wide range of words at your disposal. One effective way to expand your vocabulary is by learning words in context rather than in isolation. For example, instead of just memorizing the word excited, learn phrases like, "I'm excited about my new job," or "she was excited to meet her favorite author." This helps you understand how the word is used in real-life situations. Additionally, try to learn synonyms and related words. For instance, along with excited, you could learn thrilled, overjoyed, and ecstatic. This will allow you to express yourself more vividly and precisely. Pronunciation is another critical area to focus on. Even if your vocabulary and grammar are excellent, unclear pronunciation can make it difficult for others to understand you. To improve your pronunciation, try practicing with tongue twisters, as they help to train your mouth and tongue to produce sounds more accurately. For instance, "She sells seashells by the seashore" can help you practice these and sounds. Additionally, listen to native speakers and mimic their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. You can record yourself speaking and compare it to native speakers to identify areas for improvement. With consistent practice, you'll notice a significant improvement in your clarity and confidence. Another valuable strategy is to learn how to use questions effectively in conversations. Asking good questions shows that you're interested in the other person and helps to keep the dialogue going. There are different types of questions you can use. Open-ended questions, like, What do you think about the new park in our neighborhood? Encourage the other person to share their thoughts in detail. Closed-ended questions like, "Do you like coffee?" are useful when you want a simple yes or no answer. Balancing these two types of questions can help you steer the conversation in a natural and engaging way. Understanding body language and nonverbal cues is also essential for successful communication. Sometimes what you don't say speaks louder than your words. For example, maintaining eye contact shows that you're paying attention, while nodding occasionally indicates agreement or understanding. Smiling can help to create a positive atmosphere, making the other person feel comfortable. On the other hand, crossing your arms or avoiding eye contact might give the impression that you're not interested. Practice being aware of your own body language and observing others to better understand the unspoken elements of communication. Another way to improve is by practicing storytelling. People love hearing stories, and being able to share your own experiences in an engaging way is a great skill. When telling a story, remember to include details that bring it to life. For example, instead of saying, "I went to a park and it was nice," you could say, "Last weekend I visited this beautiful park with tall green trees and a sparkling lake. I spent hours walking along the trails, listening to the birds, and enjoying the fresh air." Adding vivid descriptions and emotions makes your story more interesting and helps the listener feel connected to your experience. If you want to take your conversational skills to the next level, consider joining a language exchange group or finding a speaking partner online. These platforms give you the chance to practice with people from different backgrounds, exposing you to various accents and conversational styles. Additionally, you'll learn about different cultures, which can make your conversations more meaningful and insightful. When practicing with a partner, focus on having natural, flowing conversations rather than just practicing set phrases. This will prepare you for real-life situations where conversations don't always follow a predictable script. Lastly, it's important to reflect on your progress and identify areas for improvement. After each conversation, ask yourself questions like, "Did I understand the other person clearly? Was I able to express my thoughts effectively? And what could I do better next time?" Taking the time to reflect will help you pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses, allowing you to focus your practice on areas that need more attention. Remember, the journey to fluency is a marathon, not a sprint. Celebrate your successes, no matter how small, and keep pushing yourself to reach new heights. Another crucial step in mastering conversational English is developing your ability to actively listen during discussions. Active listening means more than just hearing words. It involves paying close attention to the speaker's tone, emotions, and non-verbal cues. When someone is sharing their thoughts, nodding occasionally or saying phrases like, "I see," "That makes sense," or "Tell me more," can show that you are engaged in the conversation. Active listening not only helps you understand the message better, but also encourages the other person to feel valued and respected. This skill can be especially useful in professional settings, where showing attentiveness can create a strong, positive impression. An essential practice for improving conversational skills is shadowing. Shadowing involves listening to a native speaker and trying to repeat what they say as closely as possible in terms of pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. For example, you can choose a short audio clip, play a sentence, pause it, and then repeat it exactly as you heard it. Doing this regularly helps you internalize natural speech patterns and improve your ability to sound fluent. Pair this with recording your voice and comparing it to the original, as it allows you to identify areas where you can make adjustments to match native pronunciation more closely. Another effective method is learning how to paraphrase. Paraphrasing involves restating someone's ideas in your own words, which shows understanding and keeps the conversation flowing. For instance, if someone says, "I had a rough day at work because my boss gave me extra tasks at the last minute," you could respond by saying, "It sounds like your boss really put you under pressure today with those last-minute tasks." Paraphrasing not only demonstrates that you are paying attention, but also allows you to confirm that you understood the speaker correctly, which is an important aspect of effective communication. Building your cultural awareness can also significantly enhance your conversational skills. Conversations are not just about language, but also about understanding the context and cultural norms. For example, in some cultures, it's common to make small talk before getting to the main topic, while in others, people prefer to dive straight into business discussions. Being aware of these differences can help you adjust your approach and avoid potential misunderstandings. Reading about different cultures, watching international films, or joining multicultural groups can provide valuable insights and improve your ability to connect with people from diverse backgrounds. Focusing on improving your fluency through repetition is another valuable strategy. The more you practice speaking about a topic, the more confident and natural your speech will become. For example, if you struggle to talk about your daily routine, write down a few key points and practice speaking about them multiple times. Each time, try to add more details or use different expressions to describe the same ideas. Over time, this will help you become more comfortable with the topic and prepare you to discuss it effortlessly in real conversations. Another way to enhance your conversational abilities is by learning how to manage pauses effectively. Pauses are a natural part of speech, and knowing how to use them can make your conversations more impactful. For example, pausing briefly before answering a question gives you time to think and shows that you are considering your response carefully. Similarly, pausing after making an important point allows the listener to absorb what you've said. Practice speaking slowly and deliberately, focusing on where to insert pauses to make your speech sound more thoughtful and confident. Developing your ability to express emotions through language is another key aspect of conversational English. For example, instead of simply saying, "I'm happy," you can use more descriptive phrases like, "I'm over the moon," "I'm thrilled," or "I couldn't be happier." Similarly, instead of saying, "I'm sad," you could say, "I feel down," "I'm heartbroken," or "I'm feeling blue." Using a variety of expressions not only makes your speech more interesting, but also helps you convey your feelings more accurately. Practicing these expressions in different scenarios can help you become more comfortable using them in real conversations. Understanding and using idioms is a fantastic way to enhance your conversational English. Idioms are expressions that have a meaning different from the literal interpretation of the words. For example, the phrase "break the ice" doesn't mean physically breaking ice. Instead, it means starting a conversation in a way that makes everyone feel more comfortable. Imagine this scenario. You're at a party where you don't know anyone. Instead of standing in the corner, you could approach someone and say, "It's such a lovely gathering. How do you know the host?" That's an example of breaking the ice by initiating a friendly and engaging conversation. Using idioms like this can help make your conversations more natural and relatable. Another popular idiom is "a piece of cake," which means something is very easy to do. Imagine helping a friend who is nervous about preparing a dish for a potluck dinner. You could encourage them by saying, "Don't worry, making pasta is a piece of cake. I can even share my favorite recipe with you." Incorporating idioms like this into your speech shows that you understand the cultural nuances of the language, making your communication more engaging and authentic. Storytelling is another powerful tool for mastering conversational English. Telling stories can make conversations more vivid and memorable. For example, if someone asks about your favorite travel experience, instead of simply saying, "I loved visiting Italy," you could share a story about a specific moment. You might say, "When I visited Rome, I got lost looking for the Colosseum. Instead of panicking, I asked a local for directions in my best attempt at Italian. The man not only gave me directions but also walked me halfway there, sharing stories about the city along the way. It was such a heartwarming experience and made my trip unforgettable." Stories like this not only captivate your listener, but also provide an opportunity to practice speaking in full sentences while adding depth to your conversations. Another example of storytelling can come from everyday life. Let's say you're talking about learning something new. Instead of saying, "I learned how to bake," you could turn it into a story. Last weekend, I decided to bake a cake for the first time. I followed the recipe carefully, but when it was time to mix the ingredients, I accidentally used salt instead of sugar. I didn't realize it until I tasted the batter. It was a funny mistake, and I laughed so hard. But in the end, I started over, and the cake turned out delicious. Sharing relatable, humorous, or even challenging experiences makes conversations richer and more engaging. Active listening is another essential skill for great conversations. When someone is speaking, showing that you are listening can build rapport and encourage them to open up. One way to do this is by using phrases like, "That's so interesting," or "I never thought about it that way before." For instance, if someone tells you about a new hobby they've taken up, like gardening, you could respond, "Wow, gardening sounds so rewarding. What kind of plants do you grow?" This not only shows your interest, but also keeps the conversation flowing. Short phrases are also powerful for keeping conversations alive. Expressions like, "I see," "Tell me more," or "That's amazing" are easy to remember and can be used in almost any situation. For example, if a friend is explaining their new job, you might say, "That's amazing. What do you enjoy most about it?" This kind of response shows enthusiasm and prompts them to continue sharing. Lastly, practice is key. To improve your conversational English, practice speaking with friends, watching English TV shows, or even joining language exchange programs. One learner I knew practiced English by joining a local hiking group. During their hikes, they talked about the trails, shared stories about their favorite outdoor activities, and learned many new phrases like "hit the trail" and "breathtaking view." This combination of conversation and real-life experience helped them gain confidence and vocabulary. Another important aspect of learning conversational English is understanding cultural contexts and adapting your language to suit them. Let's consider the example of greetings. In some cultures, a formal good morning or good afternoon is the standard, while in others, a casual, hey, how's it going, might be more common. If you're traveling to the United States, for example, you might notice people often greet each other with, "What's up?" or "How are you doing today?" Understanding that these greetings are not literal questions, but friendly ways to say hello, can help you respond naturally. A good reply might be, "Not much, how about you?" Or, "I'm good, thanks for asking." To illustrate this, let's think about a scenario where you meet someone at a coffee shop. Suppose you're waiting in line and the person next to you strikes up a conversation by saying, "This line is taking forever, isn't it?" This is a common way people in English-speaking countries start conversations. A simple and effective response could be, "Yes, it is, but I think the coffee will be worth it." You could then add, "Do you come here often?" This kind of exchange not only helps you practice conversational skills, but also opens the door to a longer, engaging discussion. Another way to enhance your conversational skills is by using phrases that express agreement, disagreement, or curiosity. Let's look at a short story. Imagine you're discussing movies with a friend. Your friend says, "I really love the new superhero movie." Instead of simply replying, "Me too," you could say, "I agree, it was amazing. I especially like the way they developed the main character. What about you? What was your favorite part?" This kind of response shows that you're actively participating in the conversation and encourages the other person to share more. Similarly, if you don't agree, you can politely share your opinion. For instance, you might respond, "I actually felt the movie was a bit too long, but the special effects were incredible. What did you think about the action scenes?" This approach keeps the conversation positive and encourages a mutual exchange of ideas. Now, let's explore a short story about using curiosity in conversations. Suppose you're at a book club meeting and someone mentions that they're reading a historical novel. You could respond with, "That sounds fascinating. What period of history does it cover?" This question not only shows your interest but also keeps the conversation engaging. As the person shares more about the book, you could add, "I've always been curious about that era. Do you have a favorite historical figure from the book?" This way, you're not only practicing English, but also deepening the connection with the person you're speaking to. Learning to use phrases for clarification is another skill that can boost your confidence in conversations. Imagine you're at a restaurant and the waiter explains the specials using some words you don't understand. Instead of staying silent, you could say, "Could you explain what that dish is made of?" Or, "I'm not familiar with that term. Could you tell me more?" This not only helps you understand better, but also demonstrates your willingness to engage and learn. Here's another scenario. Suppose you're having a conversation with someone who speaks very quickly. You could politely ask, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that a bit more slowly?" Or, "Could you please say that again? I want to make sure I understand." These phrases show that you value the conversation and are committed to understanding it fully. To tie all these techniques together, let's think about attending a networking event. Picture yourself walking into a room filled with people. You decide to approach a group of individuals who are discussing travel. One person says, "I recently visited Japan, and it was incredible." Instead of saying, "That's cool," you could respond, Wow, Japan must have been amazing. What were some of your favorite places to visit? As they answer, you can use active listening phrases like, "That's interesting," or "I'd love to hear more about that." If they mention something unfamiliar, you could ask, "What's that like?" Or, "Could you tell me more about it?" This strategy keeps the conversation flowing and helps you learn new words and cultural insights. Let's continue our conversation and explore even more ways to enhance your English learning with engaging and relatable situations. By using short stories, asking open-ended questions, and practicing real-life scenarios, you can improve your fluency and feel more confident while speaking. Imagine you're visiting a friend's house and they invite you to stay for dinner, instead of just saying, "Thank you." You can build on the situation by saying, "I'd love to." "What are you making?" "I'm always curious about new recipes, especially when it comes to cooking dinner for friends." This not only expresses enthusiasm, but also opens the door for further conversation. Your friend may share some details about the dish, and you can add to the discussion by talking about your favorite types of food or a recipe you've recently tried. This leads to a more engaging and natural exchange where both people can share experiences and stories. If the conversation shifts to favorite movies or TV shows, you could contribute by saying, "I recently watched a movie called The Pursuit of Happiness, and it made me think about how important it is to keep going even when things seem difficult. It reminded me of a time when I faced a challenge in my studies and thought about quitting, but I pushed through." Have you ever had a moment when you had to keep going even when it seemed tough? This not only gives you a chance to practice sharing personal stories, but also encourages the other person to reflect on their experiences. Building on this idea, let's consider how conversational English is often about connecting through shared emotions and situations. For example, you could ask someone, "Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make a really quick decision?" I remember one time when I was in a foreign country and I had to decide whether to catch a train or take a taxi. I didn't speak the language well and I was so nervous, but I ended up taking the train, and it was a great experience. What about you? By sharing a personal story, you can make the conversation feel more authentic and comfortable. Stories also give you the opportunity to practice expressing emotions such as nervousness, excitement, or relief, which are all important aspects of conversational English. Now let's move on to a slightly different scenario, like discussing hobbies. This topic is an excellent opportunity to practice both speaking and listening. If you're talking with someone about their favorite hobby, you could respond with, "That sounds really interesting. I've always been fascinated by photography, but I'm still a beginner. I once took a picture of the sunset at the beach, and it turned out to be one of my favorite photos ever. What's your favorite thing to photograph?" By adding details and sharing a story related to the topic, you not only keep the conversation going, but also show a deeper interest in the other person's passions. Another great way to practice your conversational skills is through everyday situations like going shopping. When you're at a store, instead of just saying, "I'll take that," you can practice forming more complete sentences like, "I'd like to buy this jacket, please. Do you have it in a different color?" This simple addition of a polite request helps you to sound more natural and fluent. If the shop assistant replies, "Yes, we have it in blue and gray," you can respond with something like, I think I'll go with the gray one. It's perfect for the weather today. By adding these extra layers of detail to your sentences, you give yourself more chances to practice new vocabulary and phrases. If you're talking to a neighbor about the weather, you could try a more detailed conversation. It's been so hot lately. Yesterday I was walking in the park and I almost couldn't bear the heat. It got to about 35 degrees and I had to find some shade. What do you usually do when the weather is this hot? You've now expanded the conversation from just mentioning the weather to discussing what you did in response to it. This approach helps you practice not only vocabulary related to the weather, but also other expressions such as bear the heat or find some shade. You're now engaging in a richer, more descriptive conversation. Another way to practice conversational English is to use small talk during casual interactions. Let's say you run into an old friend at a coffee shop. Instead of just saying, "Hi, how are you?" you can ask a more specific question such as, "How have you been?" Last time we talked, you mentioned you were planning a trip to New York. How was it? This follow-up question shows that you remember what they said and makes the conversation more engaging. When they reply with their experiences, you can add your thoughts too. "That sounds amazing. I've always wanted to go to New York. What did you think of the food there? I've heard the pizza is the best." This kind of exchange keeps the conversation flowing smoothly. Additionally, practicing expressing opinions is crucial for conversational English. Let's say you're discussing a book with someone. Instead of just agreeing with what they said, you could offer your own perspective. "I totally agree with you about the main character. She's so relatable, but I also think she could have made better choices when it came to her career. Have you ever had to make a decision like that?" This shows that you're engaging critically with the conversation and encourages the other person to share their viewpoint as well. A good practice is also making observations about the environment or situation you're in. For instance, if you're attending a gathering and see that everyone is talking about a specific topic, you could contribute by saying, "It's funny how we all ended up talking about our childhoods today. It makes me realize how much of our past shapes who we are today. Did you have a moment in your childhood that really changed you?" This kind of observation can help deepen the conversation and give you the opportunity to practice expressing deeper thoughts in English. Lastly, in any conversation, it's important to show empathy and understanding. If someone is telling you about a challenge they've faced, you can say, "That sounds really tough. I can't imagine how stressful that must have been. When I went through something similar, I found that talking about it really helped. Have you found talking to others helpful?" This response not only shows empathy, but also offers your own experience, making the conversation more personal and meaningful. Through these various situations, you can practice many aspects of conversational English, from expressing emotions and opinions to asking engaging questions and sharing stories. The more you practice these kinds of exchanges, the more natural and confident you'll feel speaking in English. Let's delve deeper into mastering conversational English by practicing through relatable scenarios, meaningful stories, and practical phrases. The key to improving fluency lies in being able to connect naturally with others. So let's explore how to engage in richer conversations while learning useful expressions. Imagine you're at a cafe, meeting someone new for the first time. Instead of simply saying, "Hello, nice to meet you," You can make the introduction more engaging by adding a bit of context. For example, you could say, "Hi, it's great to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you from Sarah. She mentioned that you're an avid traveler. I'd love to hear about your favorite trips." This approach not only makes your greeting warmer, but also opens the door for a conversation about travel. When they share their stories, you can practice active listening by responding with comments and questions like, "That's fascinating. I've always wanted to visit Thailand. Did you get a chance to explore the floating markets there?" Chain. This exchange allows you to practice showing genuine interest and using specific phrases that make your English sound more fluent and natural. Let's take another example of discussing hobbies. If someone tells you they enjoy painting, you could build on the conversation by sharing a related story. For instance, you might say, "That's amazing. My cousin is a painter too, and I've always admired how creative she is. She once painted a mural for a local library, and it turned out to be a community favorite. Do you have any particular style you prefer, like abstract or landscape?" By weaving in a short story, you create a more dynamic conversation that invites the other person to share their experiences as well. Now, imagine you're at a networking event and someone mentions their profession. Instead of just nodding politely, try engaging by saying, "Wow, working as a graphic designer sounds so interesting. I've always been curious about how you come up with ideas for new projects. Is there a specific process you follow to stay creative?" This not only demonstrates curiosity, but also provides an opportunity to learn new vocabulary related to their field. If the conversation turns to a lighter topic like weekend plans, you can share your own experiences to keep the dialogue flowing. For example, you could say, "This weekend, I'm planning to visit a local farmer's market. I've heard they have the best organic produce and homemade baked goods. Last time I went, I tried this incredible apple pie that reminded me of the ones my grandmother used to make. Do you enjoy going to markets or trying new foods?" This response not only adds detail to your story, but also includes sensory language, like describing the pie, which makes your English more descriptive and engaging. When discussing a shared experience like attending a concert, you can practice expressing emotions and preferences. You might say, "The concert was unforgettable. I loved how the band interacted with the audience, especially when they played my favorite song. It felt so personal, like they were performing just for us. Do you have a favorite live performance you've been to?" This allows you to use more expressive language while encouraging the other person to contribute to the conversation. Let's move on to a scenario where you're helping someone new to your city. Instead of giving short directions, you could say something like, "If you're heading to the museum, I recommend taking the scenic route through Elm Street. It's lined with beautiful trees, and there's a small cafe halfway where you can grab a quick coffee. When I first moved here, I took that path almost every weekend, and it became my favorite way to relax. Do you enjoy discovering new places like that?" This response not only provides useful information, but also shares a personal connection to the recommendation. In a classroom setting or language practice group, you could use hypothetical questions to encourage deeper conversations. For example, ask, "If you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be and why?" When someone responds, you can add to the conversation by sharing your own thoughts, such as, "I think I'd choose Japan. I've always been fascinated by its culture, especially how they balance tradition with modernity. I'd love to experience the cherry blossom festivals and learn more about their way of life. What about you? What aspects of your chosen place appeal to you the most? This type of exchange helps you practice expressing preferences and reasons clearly. Another valuable skill in conversational English is learning to handle compliments and give them in return. If someone says, "Your presentation was excellent," you could respond with, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback. I spent a lot of time practicing to make sure it was clear and engaging. Was there a part that stood out to you?" This not only shows gratitude, but also keeps the conversation going. Similarly, if you want to compliment someone, try to be specific. Instead of just saying, "You did a great job," so you might say, "Your speech was so inspiring." I especially liked how you shared personal stories to illustrate your points. It made the topic feel so relatable. How did you come up with those examples? By being specific, you encourage the other person to share more about their experience, which helps you practice active listening and follow-up questions. If you're discussing a common topic like food, you can make the conversation more engaging by adding cultural insights. For instance, I've noticed that every culture has its own unique comfort food. In my country, it's a dish called biryani, which is a spiced rice dish with meat and vegetables. It's something we often have during celebrations. What's a comfort food from your culture, and when do you usually eat it? This type of question not only broadens the scope of the conversation, but also introduces you to new vocabulary and cultural expressions. When talking about past experiences, try to include vivid details to make your stories more interesting. For example, last summer I went hiking in the mountains, and it was one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences of my life. There was this moment when I reached the summit, and the view of the sunrise over the valley was breathtaking. I felt a sense of accomplishment that I'll never forget. Have you ever done something that pushed you out of your comfort zone? This approach allows you to practice using descriptive language and expressing emotions. Practicing conversational English is not just about speaking, but also about learning how to listen actively and respond thoughtfully. By using engaging questions, sharing relatable stories, and expressing your thoughts clearly, you can create meaningful connections while improving your fluency. Let's continue exploring these techniques to help you feel more confident in any conversational situation. Improving conversational English is a journey that thrives on stories, real-life applications, and relatable phrases. Let's dive deeper into the art of everyday conversations and how we can use storytelling and detailed expressions to practice effectively. At the airport, imagine you're at the airport and someone approaches you asking for assistance. They say, "Excuse me, could you help me find gate 22? I think I'm a bit lost." Instead of giving a short reply like, "It's over there," you could say, "Of course." Gate 22 is in Terminal B. You can follow the signs overhead, but it's a bit tricky because you need to pass through the food court first. When I first came here, I got lost too because the signs weren't very clear. By the way, where are you flying to? Maybe I can guide you further. This response not only provides useful information, but also opens up the opportunity for a longer interaction. The person might reply, "I'm flying to Paris. It's my first trip there." You can practice your conversational skills by responding with enthusiasm. That's wonderful. Paris is such a beautiful city. I visited last year, and the Eiffel Tower at night is magical. Are you going for work, vacation, or something else? This kind of follow-up question helps keep the conversation flowing and shows genuine interest. Talking about hobbies, let's consider another scenario. You're at a gathering and someone mentions their hobby of gardening. Instead of simply saying, "That's cool," you could expand the conversation by sharing a personal story. You might say, "That's amazing. My grandmother was an avid gardener, and I remember spending summers with her planting roses and vegetables. She always said, 'Gardening is like therapy for the soul.' Do you focus on flowers, or do you grow vegetables too?" This kind of detailed reply not only practices conversational depth, but also introduces idiomatic expressions like therapy for the soul. If they reply, "I mainly grow vegetables because I love cooking with fresh ingredients," you can build on that with, "That's such a great idea. Fresh vegetables must taste so much better than store-bought ones. My friend grows tomatoes in her backyard, and she once gave me a basket of them. They were so sweet and juicy, I made the best pasta sauce ever. Do you have a favorite recipe you make with your vegetables?" Yeah. By connecting their hobby to a shared interest, you create a natural dialogue that improves your fluency. Ordering food at a restaurant. Now imagine you're at a restaurant with friends and you're responsible for placing the order. Instead of saying, "I'll have a burger," try expanding your request. "I'd like the cheeseburger with extra pickles, please. Could you also make the fries extra crispy? Last time I was here, I had the chicken sandwich, and it was fantastic, but I've been craving a good burger all week." By adding more detail, you're practicing how to make requests more natural and engaging. If the server responds, "Sure, we can do that. Would you like any sauce on the side?" Take this opportunity to ask questions. "Yes, could I have some barbecue sauce, please? Also, do you recommend the vanilla milkshake or the chocolate one? I've heard your milkshakes are incredible." This helps you practice both asking and answering questions in a casual setting. Shopping at a market. Picture yourself at a farmer's market. A vendor says, "Good morning. We have fresh strawberries today. Would you like to try some?" Instead of replying with a simple "yes," you can say, "Good morning. I'd love to try some. Strawberries are my favorite fruit, especially when they're fresh. My mom used to make the best strawberry jam when I was a kid, and these remind me of those times. Do you grow these locally?" This response uses descriptive language and connects the moment to a personal memory. If the vendor replies, "Yes, these come from our farm just 20 miles away," you could continue with, "That's wonderful. I really appreciate locally grown produce. Do you have any tips for keeping them fresh longer? I usually buy a lot, but they don't last more than a couple of days." This practice introduces conversational strategies like asking for advice and sharing personal experiences. Talking about the weather. Discussing the weather is one of the most common topics in English conversation, and you can make it more interesting by adding observations or stories. If someone says, "It's so hot today," instead of just agreeing, you could respond, "Yes, it feels like summer has arrived early this year. Yesterday I went for a walk in the park and the heat was intense, but then out of nowhere a cool breeze started and it felt so refreshing. Do you enjoy hot weather or do you prefer cooler seasons?" This type of response helps keep the conversation engaging. If the other person replies, "I actually prefer cooler weather. Winter is my favorite season," you can continue with a story. "I love winter too, especially because of the holidays. Last year, my family and I went skiing in the mountains, and it was such a magical experience. We built a snowman and even had a snowball fight. Do you have any favorite winter activities?" Sharing such detailed anecdotes makes the interaction more dynamic. Asking for directions. Another scenario is asking for directions. Instead of a brief interaction, try extending it. For example, you ask, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the train station?" And the person responds, "Sure, go straight for 2 blocks, then turn left." You could add, "Thank you so much. I'm visiting this city for the first time, and I find it a bit tricky to navigate. Do you have any recommendations for places to visit near the station?" This opens the door to a richer conversation while learning about the city. They might reply, "There's a fantastic bakery near the station that has the best croissants. You should definitely check it out." You can then practice gratitude and enthusiasm. "That sounds amazing. I love trying local bakeries. Croissants are my favorite breakfast treat. Do they have any unique flavors, or should I stick with the classic?" This not only practices conversational phrases, but also builds your vocabulary around food and travel. By focusing on relatable scenarios, sharing personal stories, and asking thoughtful questions, you can significantly enhance your ability to engage in meaningful conversations. This practice not only helps with fluency, but also boosts confidence in speaking English naturally and effectively. To wrap things up today, I want you to remember that mastering conversational English takes time, patience, and consistent practice. By engaging in real-life scenarios, sharing your own personal stories, and asking those thoughtful, open-ended questions, you can make every single interaction a wonderful opportunity to learn and to grow. Whether you're at a market, in a restaurant, or just chatting with someone new about the weather, please don't shy away from adding details, asking follow-up questions, and using that beautiful descriptive language we've talked about. The key is to enjoy the process and to embrace every conversation as another step forward on your journey to fluency. Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember that every word you speak brings you closer to mastering this beautiful language. Thank you so much for joining me, Jessica, on this episode of English in Advance. I look forward to helping you improve even more in our next episode. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you won't miss it. Until then, happy learning.